Hey, everybody. Happy Thursday. I am so excited to be sharing some time with you. If you're just tuning in, tell me where you're tuning in from. If you know what Latina Equal Pay Day is, I did not even know this day existed up until a couple of years ago. And I'm really excited to be able to use my voice and my platform alongside other Latina military spouses and business owners who we are going to talk more about what Latina Equal Pay Day is. If you are just joining me, my name is Moni Jefferson. I'm the CEO and founder of the Association of Military Spouse Entrepreneurs. And I'm a Latina woman, so a Latina businesswoman. So just like a lot of our people, our speakers here today on today's panel, they too have so much experience about Latina Equal Pay Day that they're going to be sharing. But first, I want to share with you guys a little bit about what Latina Equal Pay Day is and information if you don't know. So basically, Latina Pay Day is December 8th. A lot of organizations that are in the Latina space have been celebrating this day all week long. They've been sending out educational resources and information and fun things like gifts and graphics for us to share all across. So if you've been seeing these, take a minute to really read up on what it means for Latina Equal Pay Day. So Latina Equal Pay Day is always is December 8th this year. It is a day to acknowledge that, hold up one second. Sorry, guys. My husband's working from home today. Can anybody feel me on this? And so I'm like hearing him. I'm like, they can hear me. Okay, so Latina women earn 50 cents for every dollar paid to white non-Hispanic man. This means that Latinas must work 21 months to make up a white man's yearly salary. That's according to data from late 2021. And this is an astonishing thing. This is a statistic that's systematic that, hi, everybody, thanks for joining, that we should be using our voice and our platforms to make a little bit of noise and find out how we can make change and also advocate for ourselves and have allies support us alongside. So without further ado, I'm going to invite my panel up. So you guys should be popping up. Say what's up. Hey, guys.
Hola. Hello.
So I was just sharing this with everybody earlier, and I'm going to share it with you guys. So on Monday, I woke up and I was like, I really feel like I need to do something. I don't know what it is. I don't have millions of followers. I don't, have like a huge following and whatever, but I was like, something just laid on my heart that I really felt like I should use my platform and my voice alongside other women in my space that also have a platform and a voice and experience to help us alongside other organizations, other Latinas doing lives, other Latinas in the movement to really help get the word out. So, because we are stronger in numbers, right? We don't all need to be on the same live, but if people start seeing the trend, they're going to start waking up and paying attention. So welcome and thank you guys for taking time to be here today. All right. So I'm going to start. So what I want to do first is kind of do a little bit of intros. I'm going to start with my cousin Idma. So Idma's my cousin. So go ahead and do an intro. Tell us who you are, your background, and any information that you might have for us.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. So my name is Irma Reyes, and I work for a dynamic organization that oversees over 615 churches. I am the lead HR, so I do everything from talent and recruitment, policy development and implementation, and training. But I spent many years, so over 18 years, working in the field of HR and with an emphasis on equal employment opportunity and diversity. And for me, the role of equal employment opportunity and diversity in HR was intentional. And I really do believe it had a lot to do with my struggles throughout my career and wanting to make a change and wanting to be in the field where I can make decisions to help uplift not only the Latina community, but just, create fairness overall.
How about you, Sonia?
Hi, everyone. I'm Sonia Garza. I am a military spouse. I have been for the past 14 years. We are stationed in JBLM, Washington. We're still active duty, so really excited to have this conversation today. Just a little bit about myself. My background is primarily in the nonprofit space. Went to Sam Houston State University, go Bearcats, in Huntsville, Texas. So have my education from there, and added a master's degree in nonprofit management a number of years ago, just to add to that breadth of knowledge that we all know that education really is that key component to getting ahead and really substantiating the value and worth that you bring. So really excited about those things. My work that I do now is I work full-time now for Hiring Our Heroes as a military spouse program manager in our fellowship program. So this topic of employment for military spouses specifically is so near and dear to my heart. So I'm really excited again to have this conversation and to really push the needle on the unemployment rate, but more specifically having that discussion around advocacy issues and how we can, as Moni mentioned, together kind of have a one voice, one push to equal pay. So thanks for having me, Moni. I'm excited for today.
Of course. Sonia?
You mean Sandra? Me?
I am so sorry. I need more coffee. Sandra, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
I'm not a professional host here, okay? My bad. Sandra. You're like, wait, is there a Sonia? I don't see her. She in the green room. What's going on?
I was like, she just went. Okay, maybe she's going again. Hi, everyone. My name is Sandra Ocasio, and I am a digital marketing strategist. I also am a military spouse, and I used to be a payroll professional. I was in corporate for 12 years, and during my 12 years in corporate, I was a payroll professional. I also did pension administration, benefits administration. So I have a very big background in pay when it comes down to benefits and all of that. So, like everyone else here on this panel, I have come across a lot of different instances where I've been privy to information and just seen questionable things. And so I'm excited for us to have this conversation. Part of the reason why I became an entrepreneur was because when we moved, I couldn't find a job that would pay me what I actually deserve to get paid. And that's why I became an entrepreneur, where I was like, I'm making my own rules now. And so I'm excited to have this conversation. Thanks for having me, Moni.
Of course. Nikta?
Hi, everyone, and hi, ladies. Hola, hola. I'm Nicte Cuevas. I am a brand strategist and designer, and I love connecting color, cultura, and design into a brand strategy. And all of my work is really rooted in culture, and a lot of that is rooted into who I am. I am a Latina. I am a proud immigrant. So a lot of the work that I've done has really been to raise awareness about the positives that come from our culture, and a lot of that influences, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, but the perception that we have as Latinas, and really trying to use my work to help improve that, to really kind of open eyes from the brands and organizations that I work with. Like Sandra mentioned, I'm also, and Sonia and Moni, I'm also a military spouse. But what Sandra mentioned really resonated with me was I was in the corporate world before I tried to find a job as a military spouse, which was very challenging. I saw a lot more closed doors. And the moment I mentioned I was a military spouse, I would hear crickets. And of course, as a Latina, that's even more challenging. So I decided to take the reins on my own and start my own business. And it's been 11 years since then. And I've really taken that not lightly, but really using the platform that I've been able to build to be a leader within my industry, which is the design industry that doesn't have that many Latinas, and really bringing others with me. And that's something that has been very important, that, I think we all can all rise together. So I'm just excited to be here. Thank you, Moni.
Of course. And you guys say so many things. Like, as you guys were talking, you were talking about fairness and advocacy and raising your voices, making your own rules, and bringing awareness together. And that's what we're doing today, because we all have shared experiences through different types of situations. And so, just to kind of kick it off, and I'm just going to leave it as an open floor to us to kind of just have a conversation. And if you're tuning in and if you have an experience that you'd like to share, or a resource, please feel free to drop it here because we are going to be sharing this. But I want to know from you guys, have you experienced any type of discrimination? I mean, we hear the number 50, I think it was 58%. I keep seeing 55 because last year it was 55 and then this year's 57 to $1. That's a lot. That's a huge difference. I mean, have any of you experienced this where you have felt or you have found out that maybe others who were doing the same job you were doing with the same experience, or maybe you were more experienced, was getting paid more?
Definitely.
I'm going to go ahead and jump in. I have absolutely experienced it. And as a payroll professional, it wasn't something like I needed to go digging and figuring out, oh, am I making more than other people? I was privy to that information. So being hesitant and not being able to say anything was definitely difficult, especially knowing that I had more qualifications or I had more time in service or things like that. And I honestly tried to not get in my head too much about that because I was like, what can I actually do differently to stand out? And it's difficult, right? It is very difficult if you're not actually part of like, if you're not part of a circle or you're not part of a little clique or whatever, like it's just difficult, right? And so I think that I took the approach of I'm always going to just try to stay true to me. And, you know, it became more important to just do service and be of service. And instead of sharing any kind of information at that time, I was a lot younger, sharing what they could do differently, like friends of mine that were working. Here's what you could do to try to get promoted and stand out. And one of the things and actually last night, a client of mine had a resume workshop and she covered some of these things in her workshop. She was talking about, you know, we often make some mistakes with our resumes that automatically exclude us, or we're automatically giving them the opportunity to discriminate us. And so that's one of the things that I definitely think we need to be more mindful of. I know, you know, if you're part of a Latina group or whatever, if you're putting that on your resume, it's already giving them the upper hand to come and discriminate you or maybe even exclude you from the opportunity that you're trying to pursue. And so I definitely have experienced it, and it's not easy and it's very discouraging. But one thing that I will say is you have the rights, right? You do know what you can do for yourself. Be your biggest advocate. And I think part of the reason why we tend to just lean back sometimes is because we hear no first. And honestly, no for me is like, it stands for new opportunity. Where else can I come get that opportunity? Where else can I go get what I actually deserve? And so, yeah, it was difficult for me, you know, just going through different positions and experiencing that and actually seeing like, man, there's other people that, you know, even Christmas bonuses, things like that. I was the one processing it and I couldn't say anything. I was like, man, this is some BS, but okay, we got to keep moving. I got to pay bills. I was a single mom at that time. So it's definitely just knowing your rights, knowing what you're worth, knowing that there's things that you could do a little bit different that will make you stand out, and then going from there. But I'm just super excited that now there are things like today, like Latina Equal Pay Day, like that actually gives me hope that there is change coming. And so, yeah, that was my take on it.
And I think like when you're in situations like that, it almost is, you're thinking your character, right? Like you said, like you're like, I have to work, I have to pay my bills, and I see this injustice happening. And in that moment, you have to make these decisions and you see that they're wrong. Wow. When you said that, like you're processing payroll and you're like, I see this. That's like a big, wow. That's crazy. I mean, I don't even know what I would do. Sonia, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll jump in. You know, I look back and I feel like the benefit that we have now, of course, benefit of hindsight, to go back and look at some of our situations and kind of grow from that and provide that very necessary hindsight to the next generations. But I look back at my younger self, and there were times, even in high school, where I thought, wow, you know, there were some very systemic implementations of thought that exist from when you're really young, you know. And as a Latina woman and as a Latina, on its own, but as a female, there are so many things that I, wish I had had the voice, and not only that, but a mentor, somebody who would say, this is how I can help and steer you. So one specific thing, going through high school, I knew I wanted to go off to college. I had the necessary support to make that happen. But it was when I was graduating from college that I had a counselor say, look, if you're going to be going out for jobs, I really suggest you take your name off of your resume and use numbers. And I said, really? Now, this wasn't too long ago. This was circa 2006. And I said, okay, is there a reason? I've never seen, this happen. And they said, well, your resume, your name is too ethnic, and you might encounter discrimination based on your name alone. And we don't want that. We want you to be able to stand on your own 2 feet, or your value in education. So we suggest you put numbers out. And I took that and I kind of sat with it for a long time, and I said, if I can't get something based on my name, I don't want to work for any employer that is not going to value based on who I am, regardless of name. I'm not going to remove that. It's who I am. And I bring, talking about value, brings so much more than what my name might convey. But my name holds a lot of truth and culture. And why would I put that aside? So my first job, out of college, was working for that university. And of course, encountered that same thing that Sandra mentioned, was the discrepancy of equal pay. And, I kind of fought with it for a minute, but I thought, gosh, how do you make change from within? How do you have those conversations when you're young and you're naive and you're just finding out about yourself, and you want to work, you want to be able to to support yourself. And so, looking back, I remember those moments, and I think, wow, what I would give to just sit down with my former self, my younger self, and just say, hey, you know what? It's going to be okay. You're valued for who you are, name included. And there's going to be a time in which employers are going to value that. They're going to want you, and they're going to praise you and promote you. And so one thing I'm really excited about now is that we have a lot of these DE&I initiatives, the diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, that employers are finally saying, okay, we see you. We want to make sure that we have equal representation in our workforce, so that we're not discriminated for based on our, the color of our skin. So those were just my 2 cents on that. But yeah, I mean, I give kudos to anybody who kind of goes through those trenches of unequal pay and how you do it. I mean, I want to hear more from the other panelists on that too.
So I love what both of you were saying, Sonia and Sandra. I think the very first thing, right, and you both hit on it, is understanding that you do have rights. And I remember, so I may have been, 17, 18, and that was my very first experience with not receiving equal pay, when I was in a group with, maybe 5 or 6 other people that were hired at the same time, and by accident finding out that my salary was different. I think for some people, it may have been that they didn't know their rights, or they didn't know that they can come forward. Luckily, back then, I had my voice and I did raise the concern. But I was told at that time that I was not supposed to ask about salary. I think it's important to know that you can, especially now, you can absolutely ask about salary. And I think that that's one of the things that, for me, in my role, that I, have to keep in mind every single time, is how do I open those doors and lift those barriers for people, and offer them the opportunity to ask questions. And you mentioned something about even like the interviews, right? I look for folks who are tooting their horn, who are saying all of the wonderful things that they're, that they have done in their experiences. I encourage that, because ultimately, if you don't, right, that is going to sort of stop you from shining and perhaps maybe getting the job that you're searching for. But in the same breath, I also offer them the opportunity at the end to say, is there anything that you want to know about our company? And some people have even asked, what are your PTO policies? What are your, they ask. And those are very key questions, because for me, in any organization, I want to know their flexibility. And when we were talking about uplifting barriers, we want to know whether or not we're going to offer people the opportunity to, maybe take extra courses or educational opportunities. Is there time for that? Or is there, maybe some stipend for that? And so being that advocate for your organization is also important on the opposite side.
I'll go next. I'm like, I keep nodding with like all your stories, because I think that these are the stories that we all need to hear. And I'm really hoping that people connect at some point. One of the things for me is that my story is slightly different. I moved to the US when I was 18, so after I finished high school. And when I first moved to the States, I moved from Venezuela. I'm Colombian and Mexican as well. So I've got this big mix. And I came with like my Latina pride, and I was so excited. And anytime I met a Latino or a Latina, I would start speaking Spanish. And then this was in Houston, and I quickly learned that we were kind of taught at that time to be a little bit more quiet about our culture, our heritage, and kind of just fit in. And that was very, very hard for me to do. So I eventually did it. I found my own groups where I could be myself and celebrate my Latinidad. But publicly, it was very hard, especially within the work environment. I felt like I had to put another face to be seen as someone that was reliable, professional, which really didn't settle well with me, because I felt like I wasn't being my true self. And over the years, there was like this kind of like this part where like, me quedo aquí, like, do I stay here? Do I not? Like, there was this tug and pull between where I felt was fair for me to really celebrate what I can bring into a company and my perspectives, especially when it was companies that were trying to market within the Hispanic and Latin communities. And I could see that it wasn't people like us who are in these groups, in these meetings, and saying, here's what you need to do to connect with us. It was more of a transactional thing. And I think where I really hit the tipping point was my last corporate job, which the job itself I loved, but I did not have a great boss. And she didn't have a degree to have the position that she had. She kind of schmoozed her way into it. And I came in and I was doing a lot of the work. And I knew I was getting paid way less. And where I got really frustrated was where I would tell her, hey, I really need some help. Like, you're giving me a lot of work. I am like like to the cima with all this work. And I would catch her doing freelance work during work hours. And it would make me so upset, because that was very unethical. And the fact that I kept voicing, and telling her, hey, I'm and then at one point I decided to quit. And when I quit, I think the most liberating thing for me to do, when HR asked me, why are you quitting? I told them, honestly, I'm being overworked and underpaid. And I've caught my boss doing freelance work and going out and having schmoozing, like they would do happy hours during work hours. And she would send me to the trenches with, I remember we had this big meeting with Target, and something had gone wrong with some of the signage. And she just left me there to figure it out, which in me, it was great. It was a learning experience, and all of those things I take now, and that really has helped me. But at that time, as a young designer, I was like, what am I supposed to do? And so for me, that point was finally speaking up and saying, this is what's wrong. This is not fair that I'm not getting paid enough. And then I'm doing everyone else's work. And I took that to the next level. So now I want to make sure that however I work and whoever I work with, I elevate other women, especially Latinas, and give them opportunities as well. I've brought other people within opportunities that I know that lack Latinas inside, and really bring them with me. And so that has really fueled my mission to stop staying quiet, and kind of like how, we see the horses con los caballos, they're just kind of doing this. Like, no, I want to really not hide anymore, celebrate our culture, celebrate our cultura and our people, and really amplifying that. And I think for me, that's very closely connected and influencing how we get paid as mujeres Latinas.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I didn't even know this was a thing, right? Up until a few years ago. This has been an issue in our culture for so long, but I think because of social media and people being able to use your platform and educate and be allies and sharing information is bringing so much awareness to this issue. And I know a lot of times we had, the Black Lives Matter movement, which educated me a lot. And I learned so much by following other people who were just sharing information. And so that's everybody here sharing their story, sharing their background, sharing their profession. It opens the doors and the gates for other people to learn more. So even if people who are tuning in or people who are in our community or in our audience, maybe they're not Latinas, pero they can also help spread awareness, or maybe it's just also knowing that, hey, is that something that maybe our company is doing, but not doing it necessarily on purpose because it's a cultural systematic thing? Or is it something that we can bring awareness to our company to make some changes and implement? Now, I think it was New York, correct me if I'm wrong, they now have to advertise the amount of money each position pays. And so I think that is one way that we are getting away from paying people less their worth based on their ethnicity or their background. So when I saw that, I was like, I think that should be everywhere. I think when these corporate organizations go to hire anybody, I think that it should be made public. Like, this position is this many hours at this rate with this experience. I don't think it should be like when you come into HR, oh, it depends on your background. I think if there is a position and there is a number we can put on it, I think that is one way that as company allies or anything that we can really help this issue from happening. Since you guys did payroll, I want to hear, and HR, I want to hear your feedback on that. Do you think that would be a really great way to like nip it in the butt?
Yes, it's absolutely a great way. And I think that for us, right, why wait for other states? I mean, if it's something that you think that will help lift those barriers and will help people get to know and be transparent about salary, do it now. And I know that's, what our organization is doing. So there's a couple of different ways. I mean, when we absolutely know that this is the rate, I mean, we put it out there. If there is a range, we will do that as well. But we're not waiting. We're just going ahead and doing the work.
I love that. And I think, from your perspective, you've worked in corporate, Sonia's worked in corporate, Sandra's worked, like all of us have at some point worked in corporate. And I think that has happened more than not. You know what I mean? So, I mean, as far as like the HR, the payroll, as far as working for a company, I think that is one way to really combat the systematic issues that we've been having, right? Mm-hmm. And then I think because on this panel, we have entrepreneurs and we have, you guys, some of you that work in corporate. I was just pulling out statistics. I had some things opened up here. The Latina businesses are the highest rising in our economy. Like, we are really moving the needle forward in our economy that's supposed to be going into a recession, but we own the most businesses that are generating the most money. Yet, as far as investments, we receive less than 1%, 2% of any VC funding. So that's a big deal. More we're bootstrapping our businesses. And then when we're requesting funding or we're seeking VC funding, we get 2% of the $684 billion in funding going out there. We're getting less than like 2%. I think that's crazy. So what are your guys' thoughts on, as far as like entrepreneurship, like what are some things that, we're solopreneurs here. Some of us have corporations, some of us are LLC. What can we do to make sure that we are advocating for our pay to be equal? Like, what are some things you guys think would be great?
I kind of want to share something that was unconventional that I learned, that they have the Hispanic Leadership Summit going on between yesterday and today. And they had this organization come in and saying that they were doing some type of kind of like guerrilla type marketing to raise awareness. And what they did was the company's name was Círculo Creativo, and they photocopied, or they kind of remade a dollar bill, but they made it half the size. And they went to buy something and they paid with a $half bill. And that's what they were trying to use to leverage, like, oh, well, Latinas, we only get paid half of what a dollar is worth. So here's what we're paying with. I'm like, wow, that is a brilliant way to really help people understand why that is so important. So I think using ways like that to help organizations raise awareness. But I also think one of the most important things is to help and educate other fellow Latinas who are, in the trenches, or like I had to learn a lot of the things myself before Moni had created AMSI. Like I had to figure out what it was like to run a business as a military spouse, and no one was there to help me. So I think that when you find people who are in that moment, when they're starting to learn and they're struggling, be an ally for them, help them, share the lessons that you learn so that they don't make them, so that they can rise higher. And I think that one of the things that we struggle as a Latina and Latino community is that we don't do that enough within our own, that we don't celebrate, oh my God, this other Latina is doing so amazing. Look at her. That is so cool. Let me learn from her. I don't think we do that enough. And I think that if we can start doing that more and having these wonderful spaces like today where we have these conversations and sharing our stories, I think that's where we can really start to make more waves by empowering others and really truly being an ally to help them.
I'll chime in too. I think, once upon a time, I was unemployed. And was, of course, military spouse when you're looking for new things. And so you think, yeah, let me go ahead and just branch out and create something for myself. So, started offering services and created, a couple of side hustles that I thought, okay, I'm going to see where I can maybe go with this. And I don't know about you all, I can't speak for anyone else, but one thing that I encountered was, really having a hard time with finding what I could ask as far as, okay, I will offer this service, and then standing by it and not apologizing for what I'm asking for. I always felt like, gosh, I'm going to put this out there, but, do I really know, am I really an expert in this field? Could I maybe, offer a little bit less, or if I'm just getting, my name out there, maybe I could do it for free. And I feel like we just shoot ourselves in the foot. We kind of perpetuate that devaluing of our skill set when we don't have an understanding of how to voice for what we are asking for. And so I think through all of that too, there was a lot of imposter syndrome. I know that that's kind of a catchy phrase right now, but it does exist. I feel like in our community, and especially as women, to say, gosh, we still fight with a lot of internal things that, just emotions that really feed into us being able to voice and advocate for a certain salary or certain benefits or certain rights. We almost think, okay, well, shouldn't I be happy that I'm just getting this? Shouldn't I be happy I at least have a job, or that I'm getting this contract, or that I, wrote this freelance article? I should be happy with just that, right? So, it's that too. It's that coaching of how are you going to change the dialogue within yourself and start supporting, just knowing that, hey, whatever you're doing needs to be valued and compensated fairly.
And I think one way that, like, as entrepreneurs, because we all have that, right? You have your pricing, you have what your offering is, and you're doing a SWOT analysis. You're looking at what other people are doing. But at the end of the day, people are not very transparent about how much they charge. I always was, as a PR person, I was always sharing, like, this is my prices. Like, I don't care if somebody's doing it more. I don't care if somebody's doing it less. This is what I do. But I think when you're in a place that you're unsure, I think the best thing for you to do is advocate for yourself and ask somebody. Sometimes it's like pulling back that layer of like, hey, I might be a little embarrassed, or, hey, can I just hop on a call with you? I want to talk to you about my pricing structure because I see you've been doing this for a while, and get your feedback. However, some people will step back from that because they have that feast mentality where like they feel like, oh, everybody has to be their customer, especially if you're in the same field as entrepreneurs or if you're career driven. But I think having those honest conversations and finding the people that are going to share and support you is the best thing that you can do when you advocate as far as advocating for yourself as an entrepreneur. And I had a conversation with a fellow Latina a couple of weeks ago, and I was hiring her for something. And she told me how much she was charging. And I said, I don't feel comfortable paying you that because it is so low. And I kind of had this whole conversation. I said, I know that we're on here talking business, and I'm going to tell you, I would not feel good about myself to pay you that because I know that what you do, people charge a lot more. And so we kind of went through the pricing structure, and I said, well, are you going to commit to this beforehand? Are you doing preparation? Are you researching? Like, she was like, oh, I didn't think about adding all that. I'm like, yeah, this is your craft. You have to put it together. And I think also if you're on the other side and you're hiring, if you're watching this and you're hiring and you know that you've paid somebody this much money for the same thing that you're about to hire somebody else, is making that ethical decision to say, I know you said you would take this much an hour, but really this is what this position pays, and this is what we're going to pay you. And not taking the easy way out, because I think a lot of times that has to do with norms and values. And if, sometimes budgeting, like you don't want to pay more for budgeting if you're in a corporate company, but I think that speaks to a lot of what we can do as far as like change. And if you're watching this, and if you are a company who is hiring and somebody comes in and says, I'll take $15 an hour, but you're paying somebody 27, like, say, hey, I think that's great, but we're paying this. I think just being a good human and being a good person, really at the end of the day, is really what it comes down to being, right?
I actually wanted to add, and just going back to what Sonia was saying, perpetuating like this narrative that Latinas are spicy, or that we're extra, or that we're too much, or, like, stop telling us that. You know what I mean? Like, and if we are hearing it, stop telling yourself that you're too much. Like, I kind of hear when I hear that I'm extra, I'm like, well, God was extra. Like, have you not looked outside? Like, have you not looked at what he created, all the details that he created, right? So it's like, it's okay to be extra. Be okay with being extra. Like, start telling yourself a better narrative. That stuff perpetuates into thinking we deserve less, or, having a mentality or a mindset that is going to block us from receiving more. And so I love that Sonia said that, because the reality is we need to be extra. We need to take up space. We need to be louder. But being okay with that is basically what I'm saying.
Yeah, and demanding your worth and demanding your value and asking questions, like you were saying earlier, like you were told you couldn't ask questions, like that's crazy. And to just that somebody even thought that they could tell you that, like you can't ask questions about salary or whatever. I just think that is insane. So before we pop off, because I know you guys are all busy and getting ready for the holidays, I kind of want to get your biggest takeaway or your biggest advice to a young Latina, either starting a career or has a business. What is your biggest advice for them in demanding their worth?
I think for me, I'm going to go ahead and say, don't take no for an answer. If you get no, go find the opportunity elsewhere. Like, no, again, equals new opportunity. Go find it. Don't let anyone tell you you can't get more, or you can't be more, or you can't do more, or you can't, like, it is available to all of us. There's no reason why it's not available to all of us. So that's my take.
I always find, sorry.
No, go ahead, Idma.
I always find that if you're in a position where, you're limited with opportunities, create one. I love, Moni, this opportunity to connect. Aside from my job, I am involved in many other things, right? And so I'm part of the Latinas Rising Up in HR. And, for me, one of the things that I'm excited about is a mentorship program that we're going to be doing next year. And I think sharing this information, as you mentioned, Moni, and being that person for the younger person and letting them know that, here are the resources. This is, these are all of the things that you need to do to elevate yourself and being that teacher for that individual. I think that's very important for not only for us as people who have already gone through, but also for those that are coming up. And so I would say, ask questions, get yourself a mentor, and yes, toot your horn, advocate for yourself, and create your opportunities.
So many good ones. Okay, so I will say that, a couple of things. So one is that knowledge is power. You need to know anything and everything about the role that you're either trying to get or that you are, aspiring to. Do the research, because in that research, you will at least know what the fair market value of your role is. Look at where you're looking to get that role. Are you on the East Coast? Are you in the Midwest? Know what the salary expectation is of the area that you're geographically located in. And then secondly, network. LinkedIn is such a fantastic place in which you can connect to people who have the role that maybe you're looking to get into. Set up an informational chat with them. Just say, hey, I would love to talk 15, 20 minutes at the most about your company culture and your role. And sometimes it's just asking, for advice, asking for insight, that you can find out so much about that particular role, about what it took to get there, about how the company sees and values their employees. And then lastly, get involved. If you feel that at any point that there is something that is not, being played out fairly, Moni is a great example of this. Just if you feel it, that it's in your heart, then go out and create that opportunity, create that conversation in that community, because the chances are there's others that are experiencing the same thing that you are. So find your community, get in fellowship with each other, talk about the hard things, and hopefully, together we can make some sort of traction on this very necessary conversation.
These are all so great. I am loving it, and it's been very inspiring hearing what you guys are sharing too. So, I would leave everyone with saying your Latinidad is your superpower. Never forget that, because there's so much that you can bring to the table from who you are, your essence, your being, your cultura, your language, that will help your company and other organizations. Because our demographic as Latinos in the US, we're growing. We are the future. And I don't think that companies can no longer ignore that. So if we can start working together and really amplifying our voices, elevating other mujeres, I think that is incredible. And if you ever find yourself in a position where you are cast away, or you're kind of being put in a box, or you're told not to be whatever social media is portraying us to be as mujeres, don't listen to that. Make your voice shine, stand in power, stand in your Latinidad, celebrate who you are, and bring other people with you to celebrate along the way, because together we can do muchísimo más. We can do so much more together. And really, this is my thing with LinkedIn Learning, because I do courses with them. Never, ever stop learning. Always be learning. Always. There's always something that we can learn from, other experiences, things that we can communicate. So leverage these incredible tools and resources that now we have more than back in the day when many of us started. Leverage those opportunities, create your own opportunities, and keep going, because you will make it work.
Yeah. Wow. You guys are incredible. You left me with, I wrote down all these notes. I have been taking notes because I want to make sure that I share this with our people and everybody who's on our email list and in our community. And I really love what you said, Nika, when you said Latina is your superpower. And I think that a lot of us already know that, but because society stigmatizes us as loud and audacious and aggressive and emotional and passionate and fiery and whatever, that it makes us feel like we have to hold back, and asking for more is being extra. So if you're watching this, I want to encourage you to share this with somebody else. Continue to educate yourself. If you feel that you need a pay raise, listen, now's the time. Demand your worth. Stop waiting for other people to create opportunities, and just start doing it yourself. And together, we will make a change. It takes time, but if we're silent, nothing will happen. And so that's why I was like, you know what? I just want us to get together and have a conversation. You know, real women doing real life, family, business, advocacy, you know, but at the end of the day, you have to invest in yourself through resources, education, and you also have to advocate, which means using your voice. So I want to encourage you, if you guys are still listening or if you're tuning in, I want to encourage you to use your voice in whatever that looks like, just use it. It is powerful, and together we will make change. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, for tuning in. Please share this with somebody else, and we'll see you guys later.
Bye, adios.
Bye.